Good morning. Learning Kuf Mem, page 140, chapter 20. The name of the chapter is Toilin. We ended off yesterday with the words of Fishen Oisin Oiso Ella Legoven, because we do not perform this separating of an egg except for coloring purposes. One who separates an egg while coloring mustard has not performed the malacha of sorting. This is on a side note. David asked me if you can make sushi on Shabbos. So I listened to the rabbi in Crown Heights, and he said that sushi has an issue of boine, building. So there's a whole debate whether there is boine in food or there's no boine in food. In the category of food, if there's such a thing as building. Yeah. And he took the opinion that there is such a thing, boine, in food. I guess you assembling, you're putting something together. It's like an artisan work. You're laying the rice, you're rolling it a special way, you're putting the different things. If the rice, let's say, was not hot, right? So you're not cooking, per se, anything inside.
Right.
You're not cooking fish, the raw fish.
Right.
You're not cooking anything. Assuming the rice was prepared and not hot.
Right.
Then assuming the vegetables were also cut up, because usually you cut up thin vegetables. Everything is cut in a very, which is a problem also in Shabbos. They cut like this.
Right.
They cut in a very precise.
Right. You're not supposed to do that.
You're not supposed to. Assuming that was prepared also.
Right.
So let's say you had all the ingredients prepared before Shabbos. Can you just roll it, put it together? So according to one opinion, many opinions side with it, that there is boine in oichlin, there is such a thing as building in food, and then you are constructing something over here, and therefore it will be prohibited. But I listened last night to another rabbi in Israel, and he quoted the Alter Rebbe that said that there is no boine to ochlin. He doesn't take the sides that there is boine to ochlin, boine to food, building, constructing something in food, and therefore the only exception to the rule is megaben, is the case of making cheese. Like you're taking something from a state of being liquid, you're turning it into being solid. Okay?
Yeah.
So that considered boine, building in food.
Mm-hmm.
That would be considered building in food, constructing something in food. Comes to cheese, turning milk into cheese. But in regards to other things, there's no boine to ochlin. So according to that opinion, it will be permissible to bake sushi on Shabbos, but the rice cannot be hot, the vegetables cannot be cut thin. So really two Chabad rabbis in two different places in the world, one is in Crown Heights, one is in Israel. One said, no, it shouldn't make sushi, Rabbi of Crown Heights. And Rabbi in Israel said that according to the Alter Rebbe, there's no boine in oichlin, and therefore you'll be permitted. But then you have all these things that you have to be concerned with. That all the ingredients should be prepared. But if you're already preparing all the ingredients before Shabbos, I said just make the sushi before Shabbos, and on Shabbos eat it.
Right. I don't know.
Right.
You gotta really be crazy for sushi to go all that way.
Yeah, some people are into it, so they want to know if they can. Koraso lo Shabbos einig. You need to make Shabbos delight.
Yeah, I got
so
that.
you're allowed to make it delight. So, but there's also interesting. He said there's an issue, for example, of medabek. Sometimes the rice is sushi is a different rice than they use in regular rice. At least it's made differently because it's more of a gooey rice. It has to be like sticky.
Everything together.
It has to be sticky, exactly.
Yeah.
So when they finalize, I guess with how they make it, they stick it. I don't know if they use water or whatever. They use something to stick it, and they said that could be a possible issue of makeh b'patish. Remember we said exactly making the final blow. So finishing off something, making. In general, anything that is on Shabbos is it didn't mention this, what I'm going to say now, but anything that is meleches uman, that is like an artisan job, it's professionals usually do these things. It's a little bit of a question.
Well, it's like a chopped liver in a mold or something.
No, think about it. Why is it a problem to cut the vegetable very thin? Why? Because who cuts vegetable very thin?
A chef.
A chef. And that's what I said. Artisan work, anything that is like being done by professionals in a certain way, on Shabbos it's not so simple that you can do.
I mean, sometimes somebody will bring out a salad.
Where do you think the Fabregan salad came from? That they just like chunks of tomatoes and chunks of onions. Where does it come from? Because on Shabbos they didn't want to get involved with chopping things very fine.
So you buy a bunch of Israeli salad before Shabbos, and
right? But in some places, they kept the cost of kiddushin very low. How did they kept it low? They took 2-3 volunteers from the shul, and they prepared the kiddush. They prepared the kiddush right before the kiddush. So one guy cutting, he gets up, let's say a little bit earlier than usual. He cuts up tomatoes, he cuts up cucumbers, they throw them into a thing.
Oil, vinegar in it.
Right before the kiddush, he would put the dressing, and they would serve it right away. Right. I noticed it myself. So the cholent they would make before Shabbos, right. and things like that. But it seems like there will be no kiddushim in the near future. In the near future, there's no.
Unfortunately, we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. And then, God willing, we'll get back soon to a normal situation.
Yeah, I only want the old normal. I refuse the new normal. But that's another story for another day.
Yeah, of course. That's what we mean. Today, what we see today, it's not considered normal.
Not to me.
I'm sure it's not to anyone.
I hope not. God forbid.
Yeah.
Shouldn't people settle for this?
Anyhow, the Gemara now discusses other potential pitfalls in the preparation of mustard and other foods. So this is really negate to what we're learning. Itmar chardal shelo shomer Shabbos. Mustard which was needed from before the Shabbos. The machor concerning its further processing on the following day. One may steep it by mixing liquid into it with a utensil, but not by hand. Amarav, you can do it with the utensil, but not by hand. Amar Shmuel, biyad, question mark, biyad, by hand, mix it by hand. Atu kol yemem machol biyad. Does one steep it by mixing liquid into it by hand on any other day? Surely not. Nobody does it. Why? Machol chamerim hu. It is the fodder, the food of donkeys that one need it in such a manner. One may steep it by mixing liquid into it with one's hand, but not with a utensil. Rabbi Elazar says concerning steeping mustard by mixing liquid into it on the Shabbos, both mixing by hand and mixing with the utensils are prohibited. Both mixing by hand and mixing with the utensils are permitted. Abai Rav don't Vayu. Abai and Rav both said, "Ein halacha k'Rabbi Yochanan. Halacha does not follow Rabbi Yochanan. Rather, halacha follows Rabbi Elazar." What did Rabbi Elazar say? It's concerning steeping mustard by mixing liquid into the Shabbos. Either way, it's prohibited. So halacha ein halacha k'Rabbi Yochanan. So he said halacha does not follow Rabbi Yochanan. So rather halacha follows Rabbi Elazar. Kam Rabbi Yochanan v'shlosed Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Yochanan subsequently took up Rabbi Elazar's view, prohibiting mixing liquid into mustard in any manner. Don't mix mustard with liquid on Shabbos in any manner. Kam Rabbi Elazar v'shlosed Shmuel, and Rabbi Elazar subsequently took Shmuel's view, prohibiting mixing liquid into mustard with utensil, but permitting it by hand. So Rabbi Elazar became more lenient, and Rabbi Yochanan became more stringent. Abai v'Rav Adam v'Tarvayu halacha k'Rabbi Yochanan. And the halacha follows Rabbi Yochanan, who prohibit mixing liquid into mustard in any manner. Eventually became the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Abai's mother once prepared for him mustard by mixing liquid into it on the Shabbos, and he did not eat it. The Visu de Zeira, the wife of Zeira, she made for Rabbi Ashi this dish mustard, once prepared mustard for Rabbi Ashi by mixing liquid into it on the Shabbos, and he did not eat it. Bless you. Amar lei l'rabo chavidi lei ve'ochal v'at lo yochal. So the wife of Zeira, she said to him, I prepared the same dish to your teacher, and he has eaten it, and you will not eat it. So Omar Rav Bar Shabo said, Ava Kamina Kamei de Ravina. I was once standing before Ravina, Uvach Shalei B'Shufsa Desuma V'Ochal, and I steered it for him with a center stalk of garlic, and he ate it. Whatever, I mixed it. I mixed it for him, this garlic stalk, and he ate it. The halacha does not follow any of these teachings, but rather it accords with that which was stated. Shabbos, mustard which was mixed from before the Shabbos. The following day, the Shabbos, one may steep the mustard by mixing liquid into it, both by hand and with a utensil. And one may also add honey into it. But one should not beat the mixture, but merely stir it. Cress. Cress is a type of veggies, a type of vegetables. You say it's good for you, watercress. Anyhow, cress which was chopped from before the Shabbos. The following day, one may add into it the choppings, oil, and vinegar. And then add a miso into the mixture. But one should not beat the mixture, merely stir it. Garlic, which was ground up from before Shabbos. Following day, one may add into it beans or split beans. But one should not pound the mixture, but merely stir it. The Amira had said, and then add a miso into the mixture. Maya miso, what is a miso? Amar Abai, ninve, mint. Learn from here that the addition of mint is beneficial to a cress dish. It improves the flavor. So next time you eat cress, you should add to it mint, and see how it enhances the flavor. Very in moilin v'Shabbos, and we make in moilin on Shabbos. We make in moilin on Shabbos, but we do not make aluntis. What is in moilin v'maz? What is a aluntis? What is in moilin v'ezoi in moilin v'ezoi aluntis? What is in moilin and what is aluntis? In moilin yain udvash ufilpul. In moilin is wine mixed with honey and pepper. Wine mixed with honey and pepper is called in moilin. Try it at home. Aluntis yain yosher numaim tzlulim afarsim. Aluntis is old wine mixed with clear water and balsam. Parsimon, I guess. Balsam.
No, balsam's like from the tree.
Right, but farsimon is the way in the Hebrew word of farsimon is parsimon.
Oh, that's different. Why did you translate it?
I don't know why they translate the balsam. The other masus America, which made to cool off those who use the bathhouse. It says that I believe kings were anointed with parsimon oil. And yeah, over here translate the balsam, probably know what they're saying. One time I went after Ma'ukva into a bathhouse. When I came out of the bathhouse, he brought me 1 cup of wine to drink. And I felt its cooling effect from the hair on my head down to the nails of my feet. Wow. What we call head to toe. He felt the cold. Why? And if he had given me a second cup to drink, I would be nervous that the heavenly court would deduct from my merits, awaiting reward in the world to come. It says in 18, Rav Yosef felt that the wine's chilling effect was severe enough to bring him close to death. Wow, he didn't want to use up his chus. But there's Ma'ukva who drinks aluntis daily. Remember this aluntis? We said it's old wine mixed with clear water and this balsam. How come Ma'ukva used to drink it every day and nothing happened? The Gemara says, Shani Ma'ukva, the Doshba Ma'ukva is different, for he was accustomed to drinking it. It did not affect him so greatly. The next Mishnah continues to enumerate types of prohibited and permitted activities performed in food preparation. We do not soak asafatida, which is the schiltis, in warm water. So it says in 19, a gum resin having a bitter acrid taste and obnoxious odor, obtained from the roots of any several plants of the genus Ferula.
Yeah, I don't want to eat butter. That doesn't sound good.
But one may put in vinegar. And may not make the refuse of vetches float, nor may rub them. 148.3 but one may put them into a sieve or into a basket, and we may not sift straw with a sieve. No, may we put it on a high place so that the chaff will drop from it. But one may take it into in a sieve and pour it into the feeding trough. Okay, let's see what the Mishnah is referring to. The Gemara discusses the level of the Mishnah's prohibition against soaking this asafetida in warm water. Ibalu shomai. If one soaked asfetida in warm water, what is the law? Is he biblically liable or only rabbinically prohibited? What the Mishnah calls it karshini. Let's see what it is. If he soaked karshinin, asfetida, unwittingly on the Shabbos, he is liable to a chatos. It is biblically prohibited. Amar le Abaye. Abaye said to him, if one soaked raw meat in water, would he be liable in this case as well? Certainly not. Why then should he be liable for soaking asfetida? It says in 28, there is no real prohibition that could apply in the case of soaking raw meat. And so there's no real comparison between these the cases of soaking raw meat and soaking asfetida. Oh no! So asfetida is the chiltis. We said regarding to that, we said it's a gum resin, having a bitter, acrid taste.
The second paragraph in 28. Perhaps Rav Ada.
Perhaps Rav Ada held that soaking asfetida in warm water carries a biblical liability because that is the final step in its preparation, much as pouring hot water over certain types of fish or placing an egg next to a kettle, causing it to become just slightly cooked. It is rabbinically prohibited so that one should not act in the manner in which he acts during the week. To do it differently than what he does during the week. What is the law concerning soaking asfetida in cold water? Amar leoso, Rabbi Yana said to Rabbi Yochanan, it is prohibited. But we learned in the Mishnah and Shirin as achilta separation. We may not soak asfetida in warm water. This implies that soaking it in cold water is permitted. How come Rabbi Yana said that it's prohibited? If it is so that I cannot resolve a difficulty that you have raised from a Mishnah, what difference is there between you and me? Our Mishnah cannot be cited as a proof, for our Mishnah is reflective of the opinion of individual. Tanya ensures we may not soak asfetida neither in hot water nor in cold water. Rabbi says in hot water is prohibited, in cold water is permitted. So the unattributed view of the Tanakama, however, is the majority and thus prevailing opinion. The Gemara explains that what asfetida mixture was used to treat. You asked, what is the purpose of it? So the Gemara answers it now. Lamai of delay. For what condition was the asfetida mixture made? Leyukra de liba. For heaviness of the heart. You can use some, no?
Why?
Heaviness of the heart. Maybe, not to feel tired, no? What's heaviness of the heart? Oh, that's for chest pain. According to Meiri, it's chest pain. No, you don't need it.
Yeah,
it's Baruch Hashem. This obviously refers to a non-life-threatening condition. That we can all have it. Since in a situation where a life is endangered, even biblically prohibited may be violated. In Chassidus, heaviness of the heart is feeling sluggish, no?
It's like they're being depressed.
Yeah.
I'm not depressed.
Not at all.
I'm okay. figure out how to get around the whole thing.
I'm pretty optimistic.
Hopefully we'll get through this. I hope it starts to turn around. We'll move on.
Yeah, Rav Acha Bar Yosef chash biyuko de libo. Rav Acha Bar Yosef suffered from heaviness of the heart. Also came to Marukva, he came before Marukva. Marukva told Rav Acha Bar Yosef, Zil shtei tloso tikle chiltoso v'sloso yeme. Go drink 3 gold dinars weight of asphatida potion over the course of 3 days. He went and drank a dose on the 5th day of the week, Thursday, and on Erev Shabbos on Friday. The following day, he went and asked in the study hall concerning whether he was permitted to take his 3rd dose. Omar le Rav Ado. It was taught in the academy of Rav Ada. Some say it was taught in the academy of Mar Bar Rav Ada. A person may drink a kav or 2 kavs of asfatida, a potion, and not be concerned of for Shabbos violation. Therefore, of Acha Bar Yosef are certainly permitted to take your 3rd dose. I was not unsure whether I was permitted to drink, for I know that I certainly may do so. Whether my uncertainty was, what is the ruling concerning soaking asfatida on the Shabbos? It is prohibited even in my case on account of it being a weekday activity. A similar incident happened to me. I found myself in a similar situation. So what did he wanted to know? He wanted to know if he's allowed to soak it on Shabbos, right? Yeah. So what was the answer? It is prohibited even in my case on account of it being a weekday activity. I guess he could have prepared it before Shabbos. For one may not soak asfatida on Shabbos. A similar incident happened to me. I found myself in a similar situation. And I went and asked Ravad Barava, and it was not in his hand. He was unsure of the halacha. I went and asked Ravuna, and he said, this is what Rav said. One may soak asfatida in cold water and leave it in the sun to become warm. Did Rav permit this only in accordance with the one Rav Yosef, who permits soaking asfatida in cold water in the Brisa cited previously. Rav permitting this even according to the one who was prohibit soaking asfatida in cold water. The Tanakama cited in the Brisa previously. Those words of the Tanakama were said only where one had not begun drinking the medication at all, prohibiting one from soaking asfatida on the Shabbos. You see, the purpose of making it was for medicinal purpose. Right. That's why they would make it. Medication doesn't always taste good. Right. But in our case, since he began to drink the asfatida on the 5th day of the week, Thursday, and on Erev Shabbos Friday, if he were not to drink it on Shabbos as well, he would be in mortal danger.
As a dangerous relapse might result.
Right?
Rav allowed
so Rav Acha Bar Yosef would be in danger, as a dangerous relapse might result. Yeah. So Rav allowed one to soak the asfatida for any prohibition is overridden in a life-threatening situation. He had to take his medication.
Yeah.
So, Mistamech was Rav Acha bar Yosef Akash with Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak bar Achte. Rav Acha bar Yosef was walking while leaning on the shoulder of his nephew, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Omar le Rav Acha bar Yosef said to Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Ki moitina levi Rav Safra Elina. When we reach the house of Rav Safra, bring me in. Take me into Rav Safra's house. Kimato Aileu. When they reached the house of Rav Safra, Bomine Rav Acha bar Yosef, then inquired of Rav Safra, Ma olech haskuse keitoni so b'Shabbos. What is the law concerning whether one is permitted to rob a freshly cleaned linen shirt on the Shabbos? Lerakuch niso kamekavin v'shapir dami. Do we say that he intends merely to soften the linen shirt, and therefore he may do so? Or perhaps he intends to make the shirt brighter, and thus it is prohibited. He intends merely to soften the linen shirt, and he may do so. When Rav Acha bar Yosef left Rav Safra's house, also Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak came and said to Rav Acha bar Yosef, Mai bo mar minei. What did the master ask of Rav Safra? Amar lei, bai minei ma'olech haskuse kitinoso b'Shabbos. I inquired, what is the law concerning whether one is permitted to rob a freshly cleaned linen shirt on the Shabbos? And he said to me, one may do so. But master should have posed his query concerning a linen kerchief, which also receives both benefits when rubbed. I had no question concerning whether one may rub a linen kerchief, because I already inquired concerning it to Rav Huna, and he resolved it for me, ruling that it is prohibited. Then let master resolve his question concerning clothes from Rav Huna's ruling concerning a linen kerchief. Why did you bother to ask the query in regard to a shirt, when you already been told that doing so to a kerchief is prohibited? There, in the case of a kerchief, it appears as though he intends to make it brighter, and thus Rav Huna prohibited rubbing it. While here, in the case of clothes, it does not appear as though he intends to make it brighter, and rubbing it might very well have been permitted. This was in fact the case, as Rav Safra permitted rubbing the shirt. Gemara cited a ruling concerning the handling of freshly laundered garments. The Gemara digresses to discuss such garments relative to a case where the rabbinic decree of muktzeh may apply. Amar Rav Chisda said, Hai kitinyoso, Hai kitioniso, that freshly laundered linen shirt. To remove it from its rod is permitted, but to slip the rod out of the shirt is prohibited. Kanya mimeno osu. Amar Rava ve'im keli kivai umutu. But if it is a weaver's rod, it is permitted to slip the rod out of the shirt. Amar Rav Chisda kishtadiako. This bunch of herbs, if an animal can eat from it, you're allowed to move it around. If not, it's prohibited to move them. The string of meat is permitted to be moved. But of raw fish is prohibited, is forbidden to be moved, since it cannot be eaten as is. Amar Rab Ketina. So anything that you cannot eat as is, it might be a problem to move it on Shabbos, like potatoes or pumpkins and things like this that you can't eat on Shabbos.
Right, so you're right.
Can't move it on Shabbos because you can't do anything with it anyway. One who stays in the middle of a married couple's bed.
That's a weird thing.
What is he doing there? I don't know. Is considered to be standing on the very stomach of a woman. It says in number 7, one standing upon the bed will inevitably give thought to intimate relations with women.
Okay.
So these laws are now discussing, like Torah scholars, Torah student, general moral issues. The Gemara will not set forth. It says number 6, many points of advice, most of them from Rav Chisda in areas of
Commerce. From commerce.
no ranging first. It says ranging from commerce to eating habits to hygiene.
Right.
To name just a few, the fact that it is unusual for the Gemara to speak of some of these matters, and the fact that Rav Chisda addresses specifically a Torah scholar in many of the cases, lead to the commentators chiefly the Chasam Sefer and Maharal, Chidush Agodes, to interpret many of the points as allegorically referring to moral and ethical issues which relates to Torah scholars.
Okay.
Let's see. Don't stand in the middle of the bed, because if you stand in the middle of the bed, like you're standing on the very stomach of a woman.
Yeah. Who would do that anyway? But okay.
In number 7, he says that inevitably he's going to start thinking about impure thoughts. Velav milsei, but there is actually no problem in doing so. A serious practical suggestions. So, Amar Rav Chisda bar Beirav the Zovin Yaakov Lizben Arichoi. Torah scholar who buys a bunch of vegetables should buy a bundle that contains longer herbs. Why? Kisho. For one bunch is as thick as the next bunch. Kamimela, and the added length of the longer vegetables represents an automatic benefit over shorter bunches. It says number 9, the Gemara refers to stalks of vegetables such as cabbage or leeks, which are sold in bunches. The bunches are tied with strings of uniform length, and they are all priced alike. While the bunches will generally have the same thickness, for that is dictated by the length of the string, they may vary in length. A bunch with longer pieces, therefore, will offer greater value because the extra length comes at no extra cost. Okay. Rav Chisda bar Beirav. The Zovin Kanyu Lisbon Aricha. Torah scholar who buys a bundle of reeds should buy a bundle containing longer reeds. Tuna kituna, for one bundle is as thick as the next bundle. The only thing that varies is the length. And the added length of the bundle represents an automatic benefit over a shorter bundle. So let's say you go into Publix. Shmuel, you're going into Publix from time to time?
Yeah.
So you want to buy a bunch of beets, right?
Yeah.
Now the beets, they come in 3. Let's say they put 3 in a bunch.
Yeah.
Assuming that all of them are the same thickness, the same size, but just the
Longer.
the stalks are longer. So you say pick the longer stalks because it costs you the same, and there's more value in the stalks. Amar Chisda bar Beirav the learn officially rifta. A Torah scholar who does not have much bread should not eat herbs, mishum de gorir, because they whet one's appetite, and he does not have enough bread to satisfy that appetite. Makes him hungry. I myself did not eat herbs when I was poor. And nor did I eat herbs when I was wealthy. When I was poor, because it arouses your appetite, whets your appetite. When I was wealthy, I did not eat herbs. Because I said, in the place where herbs can enter, let meat and fish enter instead. And instead of consuming the herbs, he said, let the fish and meat go there. A Torah scholar who does not have much bread should not divide his bread into many small pieces and eat many small meals. Rather, he should save his bread until he has enough for a satisfying meal. A Torah scholar who does not have much bread should not make the blessing over it and divide the bread for those partaking in a meal together. My time of the law is because there is a possibility that he will not apportion the bread generously. Myself, originally, when I was poor, would not break bread unless I had first examined the entire basket of bread with my hand. And I found that there was enough for my needs for the meal. Any person who is able to eat barley bread and instead eats bread made of wheat, transgress the sin, you shall not destroy. Papa said, Aiman. Any person who is liable to drink beer instead drinks wine, transgresses the sin of you shall not destroy.
I don't understand these things.
Look at 17. Rav Papa similarly teaches that a poor person who should be limiting his expenses by buying beer and instead indulges in more expensive wine, waste the extra money spent on this indulgences. This money could be used for bread, necessities.
That I can understand. So they're talking about a poor person. So it's a barley bread is cheaper than wheat bread. So then you're not saving your money. I got it. Okay.
It doesn't say. It says drinks beer instead of drinks wine.
Right. So
instead,
beer is a cheaper beverage than
exactly.
wine. Right. So therefore, if you got to drink something, drink the beer instead of the wine.
Right.
I got
it. But there's actually no problem in doing so. But for seeking to avoid transgressing the sin of you shall not destroy with regard to one's body is a greater consideration.
What's it, 18?
Wheat bread and wine are healthier for the body than barley bread and beer. The added expense incurred in the poor person acquiring these is justified and cannot be described or decried as a waste of money.
You know, in the ghetto, they eat a lot more junk because it's cheaper to buy the junk than to buy good food. Therefore, they get more obese.
The Torah scholar who does not have oil with which to clean his soiled hands after a meal, should wash with the stagnant oil-like water which is found in pits. A Torah scholar who buys meat should buy neck meat, for there is in it the taste of 3 types of meat. Rav Chisda said, Bar be'irav dezovim ki tuniso. Is Bamidina Rabbi, a Torah scholar who buys a linen garment, should buy it from the area of Nahar Abo. The name of a place called Nahar Abo. It says, for the linen produced there is of exceptional quality. When it's chawa called tlosin yomin, and you should clean it every 30 days. So that it will fill his need for a garment for a full 12 months. And I will be a guarantor for this. Michael Tanisa, what is the root of the word Tanisa Kita? No, fine fellowship. The quality of the shirt declares that its wearer is fit to be part of good company. A Torah scholar should not sit on a new hemp mat, the mechalio mone, because it ruins his clothing. A Torah scholar should not send his tunic to his hostess to be cleaned for him. The lav eirach aro, for it is not proper. Lest one sees something on it, and it will come to be repulsive to her. Perhaps the hostess will see it stains from a seminal emission for which she will be repulsed. This as well represents advice that a scholar should take care to protect his own honor and thereby the honor of the Torah. This is from the Maharal. So the Gemara presents the advice of Rav Chizda, that which Rav Chizda would give his daughters regarding proper behavior with their husbands. Amar Rav Chizda livnosei, Rav Chizda said to his daughters, "Tehevet tzeni'oson be'apei gavrachu." You should be modest before your husbands. Lo tichlo nam be'apei gavrachu. Should not eat bread in your husband's presence. Lo tichlo yarko b'leilo. Should not eat herbs at night. Lo tichlo tamre b'leilo. You should not eat dates at night. Lo tishtun shicho b'leilo. You should not drink beer at night. Lo tipanu nechad me'panei gavrachu. You should not relieve yourselves where your husbands relieve themselves. Already back then, they recommended to have his and hers bathrooms.
Yeah.
And when the man is knocking at the door of your home, don't say, "Who is it?" using the masculine form. Elamani, but rather, "Who is it?" using the feminine form. Instead of manu, mani. In Aramaic, money is "who is it?" In English, money is geld, money.
Yeah.
Mani is who is it in a feminine form. Manu is in masculine form. Who is it? So Rav Chizda then instructed his daughters in how they should act during intimate relations with their husbands. Nokit magenisu b'chad edei v'chur b'chad edei. When in the course of cohabitation, the husbands will hold your pearl in one hand. Pearl, right?
Pearl, you know,
pearl, yeah. In one hand, and the kiln in one hand. 32, it says, Rav Chizda here teaches his daughters using very delicate language. The ideal way for them to play their part in intimate relations with their husbands. In referring to their female anatomy, he used the word pearl, okay,
I got it.
to refer to their breast, and the word kiln to refer to their private parts. Alternatively, the reading is boiro, which means pit. Perhaps a womb is described as kiln, such as that which is used to refine precious metals, because a woman's womb receives the male's seed and refine it into a child.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Wait. I would have not gotten that from that, but okay, it's good.
That's why I read 32. You, however, should offer them the pearl. But the killing you should not offer them until they are tormented. And only then should you offer it to them. Now let's see 33. Rav Chizda taught them that when a man engages in foreplay to arouse desire for intercourse, he holds his wife's breast with one hand and extends his other hand toward her private parts. Imagine, The Gemara tells you, Rabbi Chisda advises daughters, however, to initially offer only their pearl to their husbands to arouse their passion, but to delay in offering the kulin.
Yeah.
This temporary denial would lead to a heightened desire and affection. So this advice was intended to bring about a stronger ejaculation on one more capable of producing children.
Yeah.
So it was the whole idea was to have more children.
Right.
Going to the next advice, Ein sholin sakarshinin, we may not make vetches float, but one may put them into a sieve or into a basket. The Gemara addresses the Mishnah's permit to place the vetches into a sieve on Shabbos. Masnisin de loiki aitana. The ruling of our Mishnah does not accord with the view of this other Tana. The Tanya Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov emashgichim b'chvor kol iko. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov says we may not use a sieve at all. The halacha follows the view of the Tana of our Mishnah. You can go look into all the different advice that Rav Chisda said to his daughter. Beside the advice that we just discussed in the bedroom, he mentioned not to eat vegetables at night, not to eat dates at night, not to drink beer at night, and all these things were done that the women should not have a reaction to these food, and then her husband would find her repulsive, and then it would lead to divorce or leads to separation.
Yeah.
But I think it's also vice versa.
Well, these things might make.
It might be more
stomach problems, and then.
It might be that women were more, because otherwise this advice should have gone both ways.
Right.
So it seems like maybe women are more sensitive to it. If you look at 27, for example, it says, because on occasion you will eat more than you should, and he will be repulsed by that, by overeating.
Yeah.
If a woman overeats, it can make her husband, it makes him, but if a man overeats, she can also be repulsive by it.
Yeah, nobody wants,
And in 28, he spoke about dates, that it would make your breath not pleasant.
Yeah, and number 29, and that's one.
Each of these will cause diarrhea and
right, that's
flatulence.
Yeah, we know, gas.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a turn off.
That's a turn off, yeah. So the Mishnah continues to discuss how food for an animal may be moved about on Shabbos. Goyufim milifna petom, we may sweep out a feeding trough from before a stall ox. Umisalkin letzedodin mipnei horei, and we may move excess fodder to the sides of the stall because of the excrement. Div Rabbi Doiso, these are the words of Rabbi Doiso, v'chachomim oiserin. The sages prohibit it. We may take feed from before this animal and place it before this other animal on the Shabbos. They, the students of the academy, inquired, do the sages dispute the Mishnah's first clause and prohibit us to clean out a trough? Or a seifa pligi? Or do they dispute the Mishnah's latter clause and prohibit us to move feed to the side? Or a tarvayu pligi? Or do they dispute both rulings and prohibits both? Tashma. Come learn the Tanya. It was taught in a Baisa as follows. The sages say, dirt in a trough, feed before it become ruined, may not be moved to the side. Clearly, then, the sages dispute Rabbi Doisa in both of the Mishnah's clauses. Amar Rav Chisda, Machloikes be'evul shel karka. The dispute between Rabbi Doisa and the sages concerns a trough whose floor is made of earth. Rabbi Doisa permits one to sweep it out, while the sages prohibit it. Aval be'evus shel kli divra kol mut.
What?
Evus shel kli, but in the case of a trough, which is a utensil, all agree that it is permitted to sweep it out. Ve'evus shel karka mi'ika leman deshori.
I know what the problem is here.
You're trying to save it,
No,
protect it.
It's about smoothing the floor.
But does anyone permit sweeping out a trough whose floor is made of earth? Hakamash v'gumis. He's leveling. He's evening out the crevices, which is a biblical violation. Rather, if an explanation of the dispute was said, this is what was said. The dispute between Rabbi Doisa and the sages concerns a trough which is a utensil. Rabbi Doisa permits one to sweep it out, while the sages prohibit sweeping it. But in the case of a trough whose floor is made of earth, all agree that it is prohibited to sweep it out. The Mishnah continued, "V'noitlin milifnei behema," and we may take feed from before this animal and place it before this other animal on the Shabbos. Tano Chado, one brisa taught, "Neitlin milifnei behema shepia yofe." We may take feed from before this animal which has a fine mouth. V'nois nifnei behema shepia ra, and place it before an animal with a poor mouth. Tanya Yechid was taught in another brisa, we may take feed from before this animal which has a poor mouth, and place it before an animal with a fine mouth. Amar Abaye, Idi ve'idi, both this brisa and that brisa maintains that we may take feed from before a donkey to place before an ox. But we don't do the reverse. We may not take feed from before an ox to place it before a donkey. So the ox takes precedence over the donkey. And when the first brisa taught, we may take feed from before this animal which has a fine mouth. It referred to a donkey which does not drool which does not drool into the food. It is into the feed. It is thus said to have a fine mouth. And when the brisa taught and placed it before an animal with a poor mouth, I guess it's drooling a lot, before it referred to an ox. So it says in 45, although the two brisas seem to be saying two different laws, Abaye explains that both of them are really teaching the same thing, that it is permitted to take food from a donkey to put before an ox, but not vice versa. The Gemara will explain how both brisas state this law, each using different terminology to say the same thing. Meir is discussing it as well. And then the Gemara says in 141a1, the islah rirei, which drools into its feed, its mouth is thus poor in that it emits something repulsive. The brisa's ruling is thus understood, since the donkey does not drool into his feed, his leftovers are not muktzah, and may be placed before an ox. But an ox leftovers are ruined by its drool and thus rendered muktzah, and may not be placed before a donkey. And when the second brisa teaches we may take a feed from before this animal which has a poor mouth. B'chamor delo daik v'ochel, it refers to a donkey which is not discriminating eater. Its mouth is referred to as poor because it will eat even virtually inedible thorns and thistles. And when the bais are taught and place it before an animal with a fine mouth, before the daikavach, it refers to an ox, which is a discriminating eater. It is a very picky eater. Its mouth is referred to as fine, in that it will take in only unsoiled or unsolid foods. In the final analysis, however, both prices are teaching the same ruling. We may move the leftovers of donkey and place them before an ox, but not vice versa. Bruchim Tio. We'll learn shortly
This
Shulchan Aruch.
reminds me of something. Hopefully.